Hey everyone, this is Dylan, and today I'm going to be doing a review of Fear Street Part 1, 1994. So this is a Netflix original. It is part of a trilogy which will be airing on every Friday for the next 3 weeks. So definitely check those out if you're interested. This is based off of a R.L. Stine novel series, and it basically revolves around these group of friends who unwittingly basically summon a witch who has been haunting this town since she died, trying to get revenge on the town for putting her to death. Let's get into some things about this movie. So let's start off with movie homages. There's quite a few movie homages in here. One of them will have its own specific section right after this. But there is a reference to Jaws, where one of the girls, Sam, she's the one that bled on the grave of the witch. They use her blood as a lure, and it's basically a reference to Jaws and how they have to throw the blood in the water. And so for this, she bleeds into a bucket a little bit, and then they take a mop and just like put the blood everywhere, and it lures these things into where they want them to so that they can trap them. And it is a bit Home Alone-y because they also add this element of traps to trap these like creatures. I don't know specifically what they are. They're like demons or entities or something like that. I think we're gonna find out more about those specific people in the other parts of this trilogy. There's also a little bit of a reference, I believe, to Evil Dead towards the very end of this movie. So if you catch that, definitely let me know if you thought that that was also an Evil Dead reference. So the biggest reference that this movie is taking from is Scream. And I think it's also specifically the Scream television show. So our main villain in this movie has the skull mask and the kind of skull shirt. And it also has like a cape that is like a hooded cape, essentially. And it's very, very similar to Ghostface. Like, you could have changed a couple of the mythology things in this movie, put Ghostface mask on this person who's like the killer, and I would totally believe that this was part of the Scream universe, specifically the Scream television show. I think that this fits very well in line with it, and I don't know necessarily how I feel about it, but I do think that there's a lot of connective pieces there. Now let's get into the mythology. We didn't really get a ton of mythology in this first movie. I think that we're going to get a lot more coming in with the second and third ones, but basically we find out that there's this witch. Her name was Sarah Fier, F-I-E-R, and she is the one that was put to death for being a witch, and she's the one that is believed to be possessing the people of this town and making them do bad things as a revenge for the town putting her to death for being a witch. And that's kind of what they believe is going on at this specific moment in time in 1994. And this film has quite a bit of representation. There is a love story between two teenage girls at the middle of the story, and that's kind of what sets this entire movie off. And I thought that that was quite interesting, and I definitely enjoyed it. There was another part which I don't know if it's necessarily representation, but I do want to mention it because it's not something that we see a lot in movies. So the character of Simon, I'm not 100% sure about him, but there are a couple scenes where he takes his shirt off, and I was actually kind of surprised that he had a hairy chest and stomach. I thought that that was pretty interesting because I know a lot of movies and television shows, they have to be clean shaven or waxed or whatever, so I did kind of enjoy that we had a little bit more diversity in our male cast. And he wasn't ripped, because that's also a thing that movies like to do. So I definitely enjoyed that aspect of this movie. Let's talk about the locations now. This movie had locations that I love in movies. The opening scene of this movie takes place at a mall. Malls are super cool in movies, and I really liked that. And then we also have scenes at the school and in a grocery store. I like these kind of mundane places to have like a horror movie set at, because I just think that it's quite interesting, because potentially there's a horror all in itself without it being in a horror movie. So I don't know, I like the juxtaposition of that. And now let's talk about the music. There's a lot of music from the 90s. I did see a complaint online about there being like all these 90s music in this movie. I'm like, what kind of complaint is that? The movie is set in 1994. Would you expect music from 2020 or anything like that? Like, I liked that the music was set within the time. I did Shazam a couple of the songs because I was like, you know what? I wonder if these are actually from the 90s. And a lot of them were. I didn't do every single one, but a lot of them were. One of the ones in particular, I was like, you know, I looked at it and it came out in 1995, and I was like, too bad they didn't use stuff from 1994 and earlier, because I think that would have been like a fun brand thing, but then they couldn't necessarily do that for the next two movies, because the next one is 1978 and then 1666, which I don't think is music from then, so you couldn't do that, but I thought it would have been fun to do that for this specific movie because the 90s were so recently. Let's talk about the kills. The kills were pretty decent, I would say, for this movie. There is one kill in particular that happens at the grocery store, and I was like, I didn't think that it was going to happen. I didn't think that this character was going to die, and I was like, oh crap, I did not see that coming. I was like, oh no. And I would say that it's probably the best kill in this movie. And that is it was pretty interesting. I don't think I've ever seen anything exactly like that. But I really enjoyed that. And I thought that the other kills were pretty decent as well. I think that there's also a ton of references to potential movies that they could do. I know this is supposed to be a trilogy, but I think if it is very successful for Netflix, they will continue making these movies, considering that there's a ton of Fear Street books that R.L. Stine wrote. I think that there's tons of source material that they could choose to pull from, and they go through there's like a murder board, I would say, kind of like a police board where there's all the yarn going to each thing. There's one of those, and there's like so many dates that events happened in this town, I guess, and I think that they could easily do something where they have another 3 movies that go to these other dates and kind of tell the story a little bit deeper. Also, at the end of this movie, there is like a little trailer for Fear Street 1978, and it does play in with these. I thought that they were all going to be like separate stories, but it seems like this 1994 story is going to kind of be like this connecting thread between the other 2 movies, but they played a trailer for it, and I thought it looked great. I am very excited for next Friday when I can watch the 1978 movie, because I think that one looks so good. There's a lot of, I'm sure Friday the 13th is going to be a big reference to that. I think that it's also going to be like The Burning. There was a lot of scenes that reminded me of The Burning. I mean, they probably won't, but it also reminds me of Wet Hot American Summer because it also takes place at like a camp. And I thought that it just looked excellent, and hopefully it lives up to those expectations that is set in the trailer. And for my rating of this movie, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I think that I kind of docked it a little bit because I thought that the unoriginality of it almost basically being the Scream the TV series, I thought that was a little interesting. I did think that overall the story is cool, but I think that probably maybe my rating will change as the movies go on, as we watch the next 2 movies, because I think that they're all very connected. Like, you could just put them together and make one long movie, and I think that it would be probably make sense, and I think that the connection is there, so really they probably need to be rated as a whole and not necessarily per story. But overall, I did really enjoy this movie, and I would definitely recommend that you guys check it out. It is streaming on Netflix. Next Friday we'll have 1978. Let me know in the comments down below if you watched Fear Street on Netflix and what you thought of it, whether you liked it, you didn't like it, and why. And remember, if you're not already subscribed and you'd like to be, please hit that subscribe button down below and give this video a like if you liked it. Thank you guys for watching, and have a great day. Bye.